bro, I get emotional when I talk about it. I done read that case 100 times, bro. Like, they really took him away because who he was.
Bro, I get emotional when I talk about him. I done read that case 100 times. Bro, like, you know, they really took him away because who he was. Master P just got sentenced by his own brother. C. Murder has been locked inside Angola for over 20 years. Master P spent every one of those years fighting for him. The lawyers, the rallies, the money, all of it. And then the books came out. What? Corey wrote about his own family changed everything forever. The verdict, the system, and the life sentence. On February 3rd, 2026, 7 judges pulled up to their seats inside the Louisiana Supreme Court. They looked at the latest appeal file for rapper Corey Miller, the man the whole world knows as C. Murder, and voted 7-0 to dead it on the spot. Not 6:1, not 5:2, 7-0, unanimous. Third major denial, no exceptions, no grounds, no path forward. Every state-level door this man had left to knock on just got boarded up from the inside. And that vote did not just close a courthouse door. It put a padlock on the most realistic remaining exit from a story that has been eating this family alive for over 2 decades. A story that swallowed the career, the freedom, and eventually the peace of one of the most dangerous voices to ever come out of Southern hip-hop. The man who watched every single one of those doors slam shut. Who was out here paying lawyers, organizing rallies, giving interviews, pulling up to Angola personally to check on his brother, putting his name in his bag behind a fight the rest of the world kept moving past, has finally said out loud what he has been sitting with for years. But before we get into what Person Miller had to say, you need to understand exactly what went down in that courtroom. Because most people think they know this story. They don't. On January 12, 2002, at approximately 1:30 in the morning, a 16-year-old kid named Steve Thomas got shot once in the chest during a brawl at the Platinum Club nightclub on Manhattan Boulevard in Harvey, Louisiana, Jefferson Parish, just outside New Orleans. Steve Thomas was a genuine No Limit fan. The boy had posters of Master P and C. Murder on his bedroom walls. He used somebody else's fake ID to get through the door that night, told his mama and his daddy he was going to the movies. He had just stepped off the stage after spitting in a rap contest when the whole night went sideways. A mob of 12 to 15 dudes ran down on him, some of them rocking CP3 hoodies connected to the Collier Projects. They beat him, stomped him out, and punched him while he was on the ground trying to cover himself up. Then one shot rang out close range chest. Steve Thomas was transported to the hospital and pronounced dead, 16 years old. A kid who had idolized the very world he walked into that night. See, Murder was in that club. He got snatched up 6 days later on January 18th, 2002 after a separate incident popped off at the House of Blues in New Orleans. He told investigators he was at the Platinum Club, heard a shot, and got swept out in the crowd like everybody else. Said he had nothing to do with the fight or the shooting. Has been on that same script every single day since. Now, here's the part that changes how you feel about everything that comes after. No gun was ever recovered. No ballistic evidence. No DNA. No forensic material of any kind tied Corey Miller to that bullet. The whole prosecution was built on 2 witnesses, a club bouncer named Donnell Jordan and a patron named Kenneth Jordan, who both said they watched C. Murder pull the trigger. That is it. 2 people, no physical evidence, and somebody's life on the line. The first trial went down in 2003. So Murder got convicted of second-degree murder, but it did not stick. District Judge Martha Sisson granted a new trial in 2004, ruling that prosecutors had deliberately withheld criminal background information on 3 of their own key witnesses. Conviction thrown out. So Murder got released on a $500,000 bond in 2006, placed under strict house arrest. Clock reset, retrial incoming. During those years between the 2 trials, C. Murder was speaking openly about what he believed was actually running inside that courtroom and inside Jefferson Parish itself. Oh man. Basically, it's just like the gumbo. Bro, it's just the system down there. Everybody that ain't from Louisiana ain't going to really understand it. You heard me? Jefferson Parish is not just any jurisdiction. Fam. It carries a documented track record of having one of the highest conviction rates and simultaneously one of the highest rates of those same convictions getting overturned. That is not bad luck. That is what a trap looks like when it has been running long enough to get comfortable with itself. Samoda also understood exactly what his name and his celebrity meant inside that same trap. So it hurt me out because they saw an opportunity to get me and get a name for Thero, and that what it's all about politics and in the law system. He went further, talking about the judge who presided over his prosecution, eventually getting elevated to the appellate bench afterward. They're going to make a name for just like the judge that like he prosecuted me. He made it his job, his duty to prosecute me because he didn't want to get nothing from the jury. The bag was on the table for everyone involved on the other side of that courtroom. See, Murder was not just a defendant. He was a platform, a career move, a man whose rap name literally had the word murder in it, sitting in front of a jury in a murder trial. The DA's office did not just get a case. They got a come-up. Boozy Badaz, who literally did time at Angola as he murdered cellmate, who has navigated the Louisiana prison system from the inside and lived to talk about it, could not even get through this topic without breaking down. Bro, I get emotional when I talk about him. I done read that case 100 times. Bro, like, you know, they really took him away because who he was. Bowie broke down how during the retrial, prosecutors reportedly ran footage of C. Murder at completely unrelated nightclub incidents in front of the jury before any actual facts about the 2002 case had been laid out for them. Not evidence of a shooting, a psychological play. Get 12 people scared of a man before you show them a single fact about the night in question. Put the monster in their heads first, then introduce the charges. You know, bro, the dude innocent. Bro, he didn't kill that little boy. Man, he innocent. Bro, the retrial came in August 2009. The jury came back deadlocked at first. The judge sent them back in. They came back with a 10-2 guilty verdict on August 11, 2009. Two jurors saw enough reasonable doubt to stand firm. Under Louisiana law at the time, a provision that critics had clocked as a Jim Crow-era creation specifically designed to dilute the weight of black jurors. Those two votes got thrown in the trash like they never happened. Some murder was sentenced to mandatory life imprisonment without parole on August 14, 2009 and sent straight to Angola, Louisiana State Penitentiary, a former slave plantation turned federal prison where inmates are being forced into agricultural labor under extreme heat conditions are currently the subject of active federal lawsuits. He has been behind those walls ever since. Two brothers, one empire, and the night it all flipped. To really feel the weight of what this case means, why it hits different from your average celebrity legal story, you have to go back to the block where Percy and Coy Miller came up. They both came out of the Colopy projects in New Orleans' 3rd Ward. The Colopy was not a neighborhood that gave people soft landings or second chances without a fight. That was a kind of environment that either built you into something harder than your circumstances or it buried you inside them. They lost their brother Kevin to gun violence in 1990. That kind of loss does one of two things to a family. It tears them apart, or it makes them the kind of tight that nothing can crack from the outside. For Percy Miller, it became a mission. He took a $10,000 malpractice settlement from his grandfather's death and opened a record store in Richmond, California in the early 90s. No Limit records and tapes. From that little storefront, from car trunks, from street corners, from sheer will, he started building a machine that the whole music industry slept on until it was too late. He locked in a distribution deal with Priority Records, where No Limit kept roughly 85% of all profits, while Priority just handled pressing and distribution. In a business that had always been built on running artists dry and snatching their masters, that deal was not just unusual. It was a full hostile takeover of the old playbook. He brought his brothers in from Jump, Silk, The Shocker, and Corey, the youngest, the grittiest, the one who would become the realest voice No Limit ever put on wax. Together as true, the real untouchables, three brothers from the Collier ran up on an entire industry and dared anybody to check them. By 1998, No Limit had dropped 23 albums in a single calendar year, 10 going platinum, 11 going gold. Forbes had Master P on their highest paid entertainers list at approximately $57 million that year. The label would go on to move an estimated 75 million albums across its peak run from a $10,000 settlement to a multi-0 million operation. From the Colopy project to the top of the Billboard 200, that is not just a music story. That is one of the coldest self-made success runs in American history, period. And C. Murder was not out here just riding his big brother's wave. He was carrying weight in the foundation. He was a voice that spoke to the streets without a filter, without sugarcoating a syllable. And the streets ran the whole way back to him every single time. His 1998 debut, Life or Death, debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200 and went platinum. Bossellini followed in 1999, peaking at number 2 on the Billboard 200 and moving over 175,000 copies in its first week, certified gold. His 2000 project, Trapped in Crime, gave the world down for my ends with Snoop Dogg, a record that Kanye West later sampled on Blood on the Leaves and that still gets quoted, played, and referenced as a cornerstone of the whole Southern rap movement. But underneath all that success, there was friction brewing between these two brothers that the public was not fully seeing. Master P has talked across multiple interviews about trying to pull Corey back from certain situations, pushing him away from specific associations, telling him to lock in on the empire they were building instead of staying plugged into the streets. And C. Murder, by his own words and by the accounts of people in his orbit, never fully cut that cord. The Calliope had him. Even after the platinum plaques were stacking up, the pull away came from never fully let him go. Terrence Williams, a figure who ran in those same New Orleans streets, put that tension in direct terms when asked about C. Murder's real reputation on the block. People looking at that said, "Oh, no, he a real dude. Does this, right?" Then they taking the situation. I don't much like that they brought this up because this could hurt him instead of helping him. His point was that when some murder came, back to the Collier after the money and the fame arrived, the people he was running with were different from the ones who had been there before all of that. The new circle that formed around him after the success was a different animal. And those associations built the specific set of circumstances that a Jefferson Parish prosecutor could get comfortable with. And here is a detail of this case that does not get enough run because it flips the whole emotional logic of everything that came after. Master P and the family had been pushing C. Murder to take an 8-year plea deal before the second trial went down. 8 years, not life, not Angola. He would have been out on the street by roughly 2010 with credit for time served. His daughters would have grown up with their father in the house. He turned it down on the advice of people he trusted on the belief he could get full exoneration, and on a refusal to put his name on something he said he did not do. That decision has been echoing ever since. Because in 2018, the two witnesses who put him away both flipped their stories. Kenneth Jordan, the patron who swore in open court that he personally watched C. Murder fire the shot, filed a sworn affidavit saying he had lied under oath. He claimed Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office detectives threatened him with charges connected to his newborn daughter's death to force him to change his original account. Said his first statement to police had not named C. Murder as a shooter at all. The testimony that sent a man to Angola for life had been squeezed out of him under pressure. Donnell Jordan, the bouncer, filed his own affidavit stating he was detained in a hotel room and leaned on by detectives until he switched his story. He now stated flat out that Corey Miller had not fired that shot. The investigation discovery documentary, Reasonable Doubt, caught C. Murder live from Angola speaking on the witnesses directly through a phone call. There were a couple of witnesses who identified you as the shooter. So, what about those witnesses? So Murder did not hesitate for a second. They were just me and stuff up, 15 minutes of fame. That night of the shoot, nobody mentioned my name at all. But the courts were not trying to hear it. A state court in 2019 called the recantation suspect and not reliable. A federal judge upheld a conviction again in 2023, and then February 2026 came 7-0, and the last real state-level door got locked from the outside. So Murder's conviction that he is getting out of there has never cracked, not even a little. I'm going to get out of here, and I'm going free myself. Whether that is the unbreakable certainty of a genuinely innocent man or the armor of someone who has been locked down so long the belief itself is what is keeping him together. Only Corey Miller knows for real. But from behind those Angola walls, he has not given an inch in 23 years. The books, the betrayal, and the ATM unplugged. There is a moment in every long ride where the person who has been holding everybody else up has to stop the car and ask themselves the real question. Not for the Graham, not for the movement, not for the public, just for themselves. Is the person I'm going to war for going to war with me? For Percy Miller. Man who built no limit from a $10,000 come up into a $100 million dynasty, who spent 20 years cutting checks for lawyers, pulling up to rallies with microphones, walking through prison security lines at Angola to check on his brother, spending his name and his reputation on a fight the mainstream had long stopped caring about. That question had finally gotten an answer he could not shake. Because C. Murder from inside his cell at Angola had been putting out books, running social media through people on the outside, pushing content into the world. And some of that content built from inside the same prison his family had been spending years in real money trying to spring him out of had flipped and aimed itself directly at the people doing all the heavy lifting. When Master P found out he did not send a statement through a PR team, he sat down, turned on a camera, and said exactly what he needed to say on record in front of the world and directly to his brother. So this is probably one of the hardest things I ever had to do. But Jesus told the disciples, "Go out and be truthful." That opening was not for the cameras. The weight behind it was as real as it gets. This is not about me. This is about the older people in my family that has no verse when it comes to what's going on right now. He went straight to the books. C. Murder had reportedly written and published material that his mother and his father, the people who raised him, who gave him life, had not done a single thing for him. The same OGs who had been pulling up to Angola on the regular across more than a decade of incarceration, who had stood in security lines, got searched at that gate every time, poured out their money and their time and their emotions. For a son who in published books being sold under his name had called all of that nothing. He talked about my mom, my dad, the people that created him. He said that they didn't do nothing for him, which is a lie. Master P did not dress that word up. He said lie out loud about his own blood. When a man who has been writing for someone for 20 years calls what that person is saying a lie that lands with a different kind of weight. He brought Kim Kardashian into it. Not to dismiss her. Kim had tweeted for C. Murder, made public statements, put her name and her platform behind the Free C. Murder movement. Master P acknowledged that as something real. High-profile attention on a potentially corrupt conviction has genuine value. Any voice that keeps a conversation going matters. But the contrast was eating at him. The fact that C. Murder from inside a cell was moving with louder energy for a tweet from a celebrity than for the people who had been sacrificing for him in silence for years. His grandmother, a woman who had since passed on and left this earth, who had physically pulled up to Angola while she was still alive to visit her grandson behind those walls, who had gone through that whole process, the security checks, the searches, the indignity of it, because that is what real love looks like when it is not performing for an audience. And in C. Murder's public statements, in all his social media activity, she barely registered. I never heard him talk about her like that. But I know Kim Kardashian put out one tweet, and she is Angel, which is crazy to me. There is no yelling in that line. There is something quieter than yelling and 100 times more devastating. That is the sound of a man who has watched his whole family sacrifice things nobody will ever post about only to see the loudest public appreciation go to someone who hit send on a single tweet from their phone. He spoke on Monica Samoda's longtime ride or die who had kept pushing for him through her own personal storms, noting that C. Murder had reportedly gone 7 months without reaching out to her before recently reconnecting. Master P did not call anyone out directly on that. He just put it on the table, let it sit, and kept going. Then came the line that hits different from everything else in this whole situation. What did he do the first time he was on? Who did he help? Why do people owe him when his friends has him incarcerated? His friends has him incarcerated. Pause on that for a second. Master P is not pointing at the DA's office, not at the corrupt jury system, not at Jefferson Parish and its documented track record of putting people in cages and calling it justice. He is pointing at the specific people, the ones who Murder trusted, protected, financed, and kept quiet about, who did not hold their end when it was time to stand up, the ones who walked free while Corey Miller went to Angola for life. That's the real reason he's incarcerated. I changed my life and I left those same friends behind because they didn't want to do right. That right there is a thesis. Master P came from the same collab, came up in the same environment, had the same crossroads available to him that Corey had. Percy made the choice to cut those ties, to walk away from the parts of that world that were going to pull him under. And he built the empire and kept his freedom. Corey stayed connected, trusted the wrong people, never publicly addressed what those people did when the pressure came. And those same people who he protected with his silence were out here living free while he served life without parole at a former plantation. He brought up a man named Jimbo, someone who had done 22 years at Angola himself and came home. Jimbo pulled up on Master P and told him he used to carry the same energy Murder was carrying now. Mad at the people on the outside, convinced the ones who kept building their lives had abandoned him. And the thing that broke through all of that for Jimbo was a simple question. Had he ever sent his people a birthday card from inside, a Christmas letter, any small gesture that showed he was aware that real people were out here sacrificing for him? The answer was no. And the same question was now hanging heavy in the air about Corey. Because while Murder was in Angola putting out books that dismiss his family's contributions, complete strangers were calling Master P to say thank you. Parents of other incarcerated men, families who had never met the Millers, had never received $1 from Percy, had no personal connection at all, reaching out to express gratitude for keeping the conversation about mass incarceration alive through his platform. People who had never seen a dime from Percy Miller were checking in with more appreciation than the one person at the center of 20 years of sacrifice. The ATM, I'm pulling the plug off because people that's ungrateful and don't appreciate me. Even my own family members. The ATM, not said with drama, not performed for the cameras, said with a flat bone tired honesty of somebody who has finally hit the real bottom of their tank. Percy Miller, the man who turned a $10,000 inheritance into a dynasty that moved 75 million records, calling himself a cash machine that people had been withdrawing from for years without ever once making a deposit, and announcing with no visible theatrics that the machine was done. That's a forget cause you could give people they hit you. I'm an ATM. I get it. That's what I am. I'm an ATM and now I'm a square. A square. In that world, that word carries its own sting. Someone who operates by rules. The street does not. Reward. Someone soft. Someone who plays it straight when the real ones supposedly do not. But Master P wore that word like armor and did not blink. Being a square meant being free. It meant not sitting at 55 years old in a former plantation prison. It meant watching your kids grow up from inside your own house instead of through a visitation window. The whole point of everything No Limit Records was ever supposed to stand for. Get up out of the environment. Build something real. Own it. Live free. That was the square's whole bag. And Percy had it. Corey did not. The final message of that video was not a press release. It was addressed directly to Corey to Murder, who reportedly had access to social media from inside his cell and could watch his brother say every word of this in real time. That is not a man who stopped loving his brother. So, bro, wake up. If you get a second chance, man, be thankful. Thank that man up above. That is a man who finally decided that love without acknowledgement, sacrifice without even the most basic thank you is not enough to keep a machine running that is grinding up everyone around the one person it was built to save. Inside Angola, Murder is still on that same energy he has always had. They know I ain't scared though. They know I'm ready to take my wall. You heard me? Yeah. So that's what's going on with them. They sping me. But 23 years and that wall has not moved. And for anyone who has actually sat with the facts of this case, the missing physical evidence, the two witnesses who both recanted and said they were coerced, Jefferson Parish's documented date, the non-unanimous jury system that has since been ruled unconstitutional at the federal level, that wall might be exactly the right thing to refuse to move. But the Louisiana Supreme Court said 7-0. The state-level doors are gone. A civil judgment of approximately $1. $4 million sits owed to Steve Thomas' family. Corey Miller is 55 years old. His daughters became adult without their father in the house. And the man who rode the hardest and the longest for him, who put the most money, the most platform, the most personal sacrifice behind to fight the world walk away from, has publicly pulled the plug. The visits to Angola are done. The checks for ungrateful family members are cut off. The ATM is unplugged and the cord is in the trash. Whether Corey Miller hears any of that through the walls of Angola, and whether anything in this story shifts before the very last door closes for good, is the only part of this that has not been written yet. Love this video. Click on these cards for